35, 40, run, William, run! He's got blockers in front, 5, touchdown! Joshua Cribbs! Snap back, ball down, kick block! They block the kick!
This is the Oranges, Oranger Browns podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network. I'm your host, Chase Smith, and with me, as always, Browns insider Jeremy Powell. Jeremy, we are like 3 weeks away from Browns football, man.
I cannot even believe it. It was really awesome. Even if no starters played, it was so cool seeing the Browns just on my TV, the whole thing. We're back. I'm excited. I can't wait to this joint practices this week with the Giants are going to be awesome. Can't wait for the game Sunday. I'm going to go up there. It's going to be awesome. I'm pumped.
Yeah, well, 3 weeks from meaningful Browns football. I know this is meaningful, but
still means something, Chase.
It does. It does. And also with us, she is your new co-host of this very podcast. One of the newest hosts in the Press Play Podcast Network. You can catch her writings at Awful Announcing. Hear her on Set the Edge podcast. Holly Wetzel. Holly, how important is preseason football? I mean, is this something that is super duper important?
You know, with these joint practices coming up, I'm on the fence. You know, I'm like, do we just do more joint practices? Right? Mm-hmm. Like, is this going to make a big difference? But I will tell you, I like the preseason. I think it plays an important role, maybe not so much for the starters, but for the other guys who are vying to get a spot on the roster. But I do feel like the joint practices are I'm good with those kind of gaining a little bit of traction. Yeah. And I will say I'm looking forward to the Giants coming. I mean, we got some familiar faces coming back, you know. I'm a little nervous. Do you guys think that there's going to be any type of I don't know, overly emotional type of decisions, maybe some trash talk going on?
I am worried about it a little bit because the Giants were fighting with themselves 2 days in, and Coach Stefanski can't control how the Giants players react, right, and act. So I guess I'm a little apprehensive about that, but I think you're right. I think this is going to be the wave of the future with less preseason games, the way they're spread out. I think you're going to see more joint practices, and I do think they're very, very useful, especially for like the one-on-one type stuff with receivers and DBs, the one-on-ones with offensive and defensive lines. It's a new guy. Like say you're a left tackle, you're seeing different moves than you'd see every day in practice. So it prepares you better for the season. You know, one guy might be a bull rush guy and you might see a speed guy every day in practice. So it helps you with that. And plus you're seeing the top end talent from another team and working against it. So I think joint practices are, as you said, very important. And I think you're absolutely right. They're going to be a wave going forward. You're going to see a lot more with less preseason games.
Well, I think joint practices too, there's more control, right? They can control what they do better. I think it probably makes it a little safer for all the players. Sure. It's not as public, so there's just not that expectation. But I think I think joint practices are better for coaches and players. I think preseason games, I think they're helpful for stadium staff, for audio visual. I mean, they're getting all their reps in too. You know what we don't want is week one to roll around and the presentation of the product is poor because a video board didn't work or some mic was not working right or something just didn't work well. I mean, so you have to have something for these NFL stadiums and these broadcast crews to this is what that looks like. We got to make sure this is right. Yep. I don't know if 3 is even the right, but I think there has to be some type of, hey, like we have this to practice for this million audience game that we put out every week.
I agree, Chase. I think there always will be. Sorry, Holly. I think there always will be preseason games, but I think you're right. I think you went quick across something there that's incredibly important, and that's situational football. You might go through an entire preseason and never see like a 3rd and 17 with your first team. When you're doing these joint practice, you control the situations. So the coaches can put whatever situation they want, and you're playing it competitively against another team. So you might never get in a 4th and 1 at the goal line in the preseason just because of by chance, but you can set that up in a team practice and have a competitive 4th and 1 against a different defense. So I think that's another thing the coaches like. I think that's kind of what you're alluding to there. And they do that in high school and college already, where you have these situational portions of practice that you can set up and control.
Yeah. Wasn't it JC Tretter that talked about he was trying to push through just the vets not playing at all in preseason this past year? Wasn't that what he was trying to push?
I think you're right. I think they're making it all like third year, all newer guys who haven't had so much service time are the only ones that play in preseason, which isn't a horrible idea either.
Well, yeah, I go back and forth about that too, because I feel like, okay, look at OBJ, for instance, right? Like he was hurt last year. He's a vet. the preseason, I think, is training camp is pretty obviously extremely important for him, but him getting some reps in the game, I think coming up would also be a huge thing for him. And, I worry a little bit about him just going right out there week 1 with the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think it plays a pretty important role for those vets that are trying to rehab and get back.
So you guys bring up a really good point. And this is something that the Cleveland fan base has mastered over the last 20 some years. And you're starting to see some of this seep over into, the Bears fans, especially now. How do we not overreact in the preseason? You see these high, expectations with draft picks and they are just completely really playing well in the preseason. What is an appropriate level of excitement for preseason? I mean, for Browns fans, for example, JOK just really flashed all over the field against the Jaguars. I know Jeremy has reservations. We'll touch on that in a minute, but I want to talk about how do we manage preseason expectations? Because we do get so excited to see all these players play well and Justin Fields. Oh my gosh. And Trey Lance, 80, like how do you manage those expectations, Holly?
Well,
or do you just let him go?
You're
right?
a fan. You're a fan is fanatic. You let him go, baby. That's how we do it.
And Stefanski I listened to, he had a good interview. I listened to this morning here locally on sports radio, and he was just talking about, they really are taking it a day by day. And I think that's what you have to do. I can't imagine. And I really like that philosophy, because it was every game last year. It was once a week, we're trying to go, 1-0 every week. It's keeping things short and keeping the goals at the top of mind, the short-term goals, which is getting that win. So I think they're trying to get through every day, try not to get hurt, because that is I'll tell you, if there's one thing that's going to probably scare the shit out of them is injuries, because it's a freak situation, usually, and it's unpredictable. And the best thing that you can do is prepare. So it's probably a lot of emotions tied with, you're excited, you're seeing these, new faces, new guys. We have a whole new defense. You're looking forward to it, but you're trying to be realistic about it at the same time.
Yep. Jay, help us with these preseason expectations, man. We don't think JOK is going to be like the next great Hall of Fame linebacker, do we? Or is he? Is he going to transform this defense? He might.
I have reservations when you watch it closely, because he had trouble shedding blocks against like a second and third team line. But I mean, it's his first game. He can improve. I think he's a little undersized. He sort of reminds me of Palomalu. Like, he'd be a great safety. I don't know. I mean, and hopefully I'm wrong. I hope he's a transformational linebacker and he changes our defense and he's a Hall of Famer. I would love to be wrong. I'm just a little concerned. But managing, I don't think fans need to manage expectations, because that's what fans are. Fans are fanatics, right? Fans want to get excited about something. That's why we love sports, because we want to get excited. Now, the team obviously has to manage expectations, manage what they think about a situation in the preseason, because it's just the preseason. But fans, who cares? Let it go. That's what we're here for. We're here to get excited. If that gets you excited, do it. Go.
That's really interesting that fans are, get excited, get hype, but having the team manage their expectations from preseason, it's almost more important for them to realize, hey, this is preseason, and during the season, we might not have schemed this way or had a certain play called here. We just wanted to see who would respond. And so that is a very kind of interesting way to look at it. Like, no, like, you can't believe that. What is it? The one year we went 4-0 under Hugh Jackson and then didn't win a game in the regular season. Yeah. Right. And I remember a lot of Peyton Manning's Colts teams, they would just go winless in the preseason. And, obviously they're perennial Super Bowl contenders. So our week 1, let's talk about our game against Jacksonville on Saturday. The Browns ended up winning 23-13. Pretty solid throughout the game. I never really felt like the game was in question. A lot of the Browns backups played very, very well. And you started seeing tweets, our Browns backups are better than other, which is
guilty on Facebook.
Right.
They didn't play. They played most of their starters.
They played. So. Yeah, they played them a quarter and a half. I said that was my Facebook comment was, what a world where the Browns second stringers look better than the Jacksonville starters. I think that's actually the takeaway, that our depth is better than Jacksonville starters right now. And how far has our roster come to where we can say that over the last, 5 years? So obviously shout out to Andrew Berry and the boys for building this roster that's that good and with that much depth.
That does seem to be an emerging story, that the Browns are deep. I think the players know that too. Like the players, if you listen to their interviews, their conferences, like they know this is a very talented, very, very special team. And then they have an opportunity to do something really, really special. But the Jaguars, they're figuring out a lot. First year coach, a first year college who's been removed from college, very successful college coach, Urban Meyer. They have the number 1 pick, Trevor Lawrence. They have all these pieces that they're trying to figure out. And so it shouldn't be surprising that they're playing a quarter and a half. Browns, Tom Withers sourced us on his pod with us last week that not very many stars are going to play at all. That hadn't been released yet. Holly, is there a player on offense? We kind of talked about JOK a little bit on defense who kind of shined and balled out. Is there a player on offense, Holly, that you saw like, yep, that checks out, that continues their strong training camp?
Yeah, well, DPJ, right, is having a standout camp. So definitely eyes on him. And Damian Davis, he played really well too. He had 4 catches. He's definitely talented and someone that we didn't think was going to kind of show up and shine. So I think that's what's also really fun about the preseason, is that these guys that are getting these opportunities that you didn't think were going to make such a major move like this, they are. So guys like that, it's really exciting to see. He talked about that his grandmother was the one that called out and said that he was going to be an NFL player, and he's got a tattoo of her, and he's his family's been a huge support, and he says, I'm doing this for her. And it's just all these really good feel good stories around these guys. And, with preseason in general, and I think what's different with the Browns, like, Chase, you mentioned with Jacksonville, it's like, yeah, they have to play their starters. Like, well, we had to play our starters for all these years. We had to, because we had to see what we had. With who was going to be obviously starting in the game. In this situation, it's like, well, we already know who's starting, right? So now it's like, who's going to be the supporting cast? So and that's why I think it's also been a whole different approach to preseason this year for us, because it's like, well, wait a second, we don't have to go through a lot of those pains that we've had to go through for the past 20 years. Yeah,
Holly, I agree. I think DPJ continuing his stellar preseason. Jeremy, can I tell you a player that I'm really, really excited about for the season?
Yeah, go.
Demetric Felton. Oh boy, the rookie running back out of UCLA who was listed as a receiver week 1 and week 2 against the Giants, they are listing him as a running back. Man, if we can get this like Darren Sproles-y kind of like change of pace, whether he returns kicks or like, I just think kind of gives someone, can learn under Kareem Hunt. That is just, I'm really excited to see what they do with him.
Yeah, he's a nice little Swiss Army knife type weapon. Let me tell you who stood out to me, and this is not sexy, but Michael Dunn, the guard who filled in and played great until he got hurt in the playoffs last year. Case Keenum said he's one of his favorite players on the team. I saw a stat. He played a lot in this game, and he was in for 29 dropbacks and gave up 0 pressures. 0 pressures, not just sacks, 0 pressures. I think he's a guy who's going to add depth to an already great line. They're going to have a decision to make on Wyatt Teller, because someone's going to back up the Brinks truck to Wyatt Teller next year. So that Wyatt Teller might be the guy who we can't, bring back. So to have a guy like Michael Dunn build depth on that line, which we're really doing, if you look, it's going to be hard. They're probably going to keep 9 offensive linemen, which is, the highest number you generally keep. And they're going to have decisions because they got some guys that can play. You still have Chris Hubbard. You got Drew Forbes coming back. You got Houston, the rookie. So it's going to be a tough decision on who they keep. But I think Michael Dunn has solidified himself as, a possible replacement for Wyatt Teller next year.
Yep.
I don't even want to think about that, though.
No, me neither. I mean, I love Wyatt Teller. I love him, and I do not want him to go. But, the Browns, somebody, look, and we knew this day was coming. Someday we are not going to, there's somebody that we love that we're not going to be able to resign. And that's just the reality of the situation. And it could be Wyatt Teller, because I think he's going to he'll probably be the highest paid guard in football next year. So could be the guy.
I saw on Twitter, and I can't remember who tweeted this, and I apologize. But if in fact we were to let Wyatt Teller walk, we would get like a 3rd round compensation possibly for him
there as well.
Um,
And don't think the Browns don't know that, because these guys know all the angles. They know exactly. So we trade from a 5th round pick, and if he walks, we'd end up with a 3rd round pick and 2 years of all pro level play.
So outlook for Teller, bank account is looking great.
Either way, right?
For the Browns, hopefully Michael Dunn continues to improve, stays healthy and good. Outside of JOK, which was seeing a player like that on the field, Jay. I know you're concerned about.
No, I like it. I agree. Size. I love an explosive player. He was
electric,
explosive. There's
man.
no doubt.
He was one of those players that I've always wished the Browns would have. I see on other teams, whether it was like Patrick Willis or, you mentioned Polamalu, which, I think if there's a hybrid Willis Polamalu kind of person, I don't know, but those are very big names to throw around. But you see these players on other teams, and I wish the Browns had a player like that. And it's hard not to think that come week 1, we found someone who can really challenge this vertical and horizontal speed that the Chiefs killed us with last year. And, it just gets me really, really excited on a position that we needed some help, and add him with our defensive line and our defensive backfield. And I just think he's going to be free to do JOK things. And that gets me really, really excited. Holly, help me out. Am I getting too hype? Is this preseason overhype here?
No, you're excited.
Okay, good. Because I'm going.
Fantastic weapons. And honestly, we're fast on both sides of the ball. We're faster on both sides of the ball, hands down.
Yes, I knew I liked you, Jeremy. There you go. See, when Holly's hosting, you don't have to worry about it. We still got all the Browns hype in the world. Yes, Holly. Yes,
we are. Are we not faster on both ends? We just are. From what we've. It's just noticeably quicker, and we even played pretty vanilla on Saturday. So, and we kept it pretty simple, and we still could see the difference. It's like this weird, we're like on this like bubbling up. It's like we're sitting here and it's quiet and we're just ready to ramp up. And you can tell with those guys. So yeah, when they're sitting there doing their interviews and stuff, and Chase, you mentioned, you can tell that they're excited and they want to get out there and they're hungry. I think that's a really main thing too. They're staying humble and they're staying realistic, and they're just containing it. I think they're ready to go. And maybe it is just the hype or whatever, but earlier in the summer before camp started and everything, and in the spring, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, there's no way we're going to go out and beat the Chiefs week 1. Like, I just don't, and I was okay with it. I'm like, look, it's fine. Now,
all aboard the hype train, baby.
I might be driving it by the end of the week.
Right.
So.
Looking good. Okay, so at depth, Jeremy, let's talk a little bit about JOK, because I think aside from our depth, he was the name you heard about the most after week 1. Jeremy, you're not on Twitter, which, once every couple months I get someone saying, hey, tell Jeremy to come back on Twitter. Hey, we miss JIA. I don't think you miss it, Jay, but
I don't. I've never
who aren't friends with Jeremy on Facebook. He posts his Browns takes on Facebook, and Jeremy had he kind of zigged when everyone else was zagging with JOK.
And look,
how concerned are you about his size?
I am, and look, I agree with everything you just said, and I agree with you 100%. I'm always like, man, I wish we had that explosive playmaking guy on the second level, and he looks to be it. Mm-hmm. I'm just worried about when you got those big, smart offensive linemen that are scheming, that he's going to get lost in the wash with those big linemen. He's so undersized. It just seems to me. And now he's going to have to adjust, right? Teams are going to start coming at him a different way, and he'll have to adjust. And maybe he'll have the talent to do it, and maybe I'll look like a complete idiot in a year, and I will be super happy with that. Well, right now, I'm just worried because he looks to me more like a hybrid. So, you've heard a lot of teams play like a 3-3-5 now, and they use hybrid players called birds and vipers. And he looks like a bird or a viper to me. He does not look like an inside linebacker in the league. And like I said, I will be so happy to be wrong, because I love his explosiveness. He obviously has a nose for the ball. He comes right in, sacks a quarterback, makes a play in the backfield. He's all over the field. I love it. I'm just slightly worried. If you watched a couple plays where he actually did get blocked, he got blocked. He got blocked. He couldn't get off the blocks. That's what worries me.
Just for comparison, Holly, real quick, and then JOK is listed at 6'1", 216. Troy Polamalu, 5'10", 207, and Patrick Willis, same height, 6'1", but 240, has around
that's I mean, about 25 pounds.
Yeah, 25, 26 more pounds. Holly,
he can't get blocked. We can't catch him, right? So if he's that fast, then that's going to be his weapon. And, I think Miles had a couple comments, went up to him and, was asking him a couple questions, like, are you going to beef up in the weight room and stuff like that? But, and he's like, what? No, like, I'm like, can't catch me. Right. So it's definitely, I would rather take the versatility on this team across the board in a lot of these positions. And it seems to be another common theme under Stefanski is getting these guys being able to step in where needed. I think if the COVID year taught us anything is that you had to pivot a little bit or a lot of it, depending on the situation. So if he's going to be going back and forth a little bit with a couple different positions, I'm okay with that. And that's what also preseason is for too, to see kind of where he's going to fit. Of course he's going to get hit. I mean, that's how you learn. Right. So it's going to be the hard way, but we got him. What a steal. And I'm super excited to see what else he's going to be able to do.
Look,
sorry.
Go ahead.
I want to add one little thing. So the problem is when you play inside linebacker, there's going to be times when your job is to fill. And what fill means he's going to have to take on the blocker. And he's going to have to take on head on a 325-pound athletic guard, a Quentin Nelson type. And can he hold up? Because he's 207, 215 pounds.
216.
Right. That's what I'm saying. There's going to be times where, yes, he's fast, but he still has to fill. He has to do certain things as an inside linebacker. And will he hold up taking on a block from a 325-pound guard? We'll see. I hope he does. And that would be great.
Yeah. Just for comparison, Darius Leonard, the all-pro linebacker for the Colts, 6'2", 229. So very, very similar in build to him, not as, little shy 10 pounds. But if we are seeing this league, move towards this offense receiver, small, shifty, speedy, and you need less of the Ray Lewis bulky kind of like, I don't know, maybe this is the kind of linebacker that we're going to start seeing more. And
the hybrid type could be.
I don't know. Either way, it's very, very exciting to have this player on our team and to see him do his thing. And just grateful that he is on the Browns. And just I trust Stefanski to put JOK in the best position.
No doubt.
I trust Barry to bring in the best players who understand their role, and to maximize that with talent is just, it's hard not to get super overhyped. And maybe I should just take the limiter off and just go full bore and just not expect the Browns to lose a game, but I don't see how we're going to lose.
No, I think tensions will be interesting. Like I said, leading up, we have the 2 joint practices, then they play them. It's OBJ's old team, right? There's a couple different, Freddie Kitchens is back. There's a couple different emotional storylines. Guys do get heated. It's a natural thing when they're competing like that against each other. So I think when Saturday rolls around, it'll be a pretty interesting, maybe a little bit more competitive than maybe we are expecting it to be. But, I'm looking forward to seeing who's actually going to be out there. I don't know. OBJ is still a big question mark, whether or not they're going to put him out there. And I read that, is it too much of an emotional pull for him to be out there? I don't really think he gives a shit, honestly. He's got to be way over that and be focusing solely on himself. And I know that he cannot wait to get out there.
Well, and two, I think us playing them last year and winning on Sunday Night Football, I think that, removes the urgency with at least the payback or whatever they have. Like, that's already happened at their home stadium. And I think didn't Kitchens call the plays, or like he had to do something more than he was supposed to that game because someone had COVID. So like, I think there's like maybe not as much urgency. I think it's still going to be there just because they're competitive and they're athletes, and that's what happens. You find things to motivate you. But I think last week's game helped. Jeremy, what are you looking forward to about the Giants weekend coming up?
Kind of what I told you, especially, from what we can get. I mean, we're not going to see it all, obviously, but just the different stuff. Like, is Odell going to compete in like the one-on-ones? And I heard he was. So seeing stuff like that, seeing the Giants DBs versus our receivers, somebody different every day. Does Donovan People-Jones continue to dominate practices against another team's defense. Stuff like that is what's exciting to me, is to hear reports, because we're not going to watch, but to hear reports of how these guys are doing against another look than what they're normally seeing.
Yep. Well, it's very exciting. And this is exciting. This podcast is exciting. Having Holly with us, Jeremy back. This is we're getting back into the groove here. We will come back with you next week, talk about the joint practice, training camp week 2. We should have ideas of more roster cuts coming up by then. And then we'll look ahead to the team of 53 and week 1. And I cannot wait to get started. Jeremy, you said you're going to the Giants game on Sunday?
I believe so. Yeah. If everything goes as planned this weekend, me and Hunter roll up there and check it out.
Nice. Holly, what are your plans for the game?
I'll be watching. My friend and I, we're going to be setting up camp at a bar, just her and I.
Well done.
In. So I'm excited. I was able to catch it last week's game, at a friend's. But I'm going to be back at a bar watching a Browns game.
There you go. There you go.
Right.
There you go. Well, that wraps it up for this episode of the Oranges, Orange or Browns podcast. Thank you all so much for downloading and listening. Shouts to the Press Play Podcast Network for making this possible. Visit pressplaypodcast.com for sponsorship info and to see how you could host a show on this magnificent network. Shouts to Holly and Jeremy for making time. Thank you all so much. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at Oranges Oranger, and we'll catch you guys next week. Have a good weekend. Go Browns, baby.
Woo-hoo.
For the USA.